Good evening and welcome to another edition of the In Focus Candidate Forum being presented by the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce and Whitewater Community Television. I'm Eric Marsh, Executive Director of Whitewater Community Television. Glad you're able to join us for this Candidate Forum. We're starting our look at school board campaigns as they were, and we will have a number of weeks of those. This week we're into the Nettle Creek school system, and we will put up in just a few minutes the following weeks that will come. But these folks that are sitting here hope that you will do what you need to do so that you can cast a vote for them. For that, you need to be registered. So we invite you to go down to 301 East Main Street, the clerk's office, and get yourself registered to vote. You can register to vote up until October 9th. If you want to do it the easy way from the privacy of your home, that's very simple too. You can pull out your smartphone, your tablet, and you can go to indianavoters.gov. Once again, voter registration ends October 9th. You can do it in person Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, 301 East Main Street, or you can check your voter registration, or you can register to vote online at indianavoters.gov. We do urge you to do that. We got a message today, as a matter of fact, from the Secretary of State saying that September is voter registration month. So they are pushing it all throughout the state. We mentioned that there will be other races coming up in the following weeks, and those include next week we will be talking to candidates from the Western Wayne School Board, or interested in running for the Western Wayne School Board, September 20th. Richmond School Board, this place is going to be packed when we do that one. House lights will be up. There'll be more chairs. I think we have to borrow chairs from Ivy Tech in order to get everybody in on that one. September 27th, Wayne Township Trustee, and then the Centerville-Abington School Board, and then October 3rd, because we didn't have enough Thursdays to get in all of the school boards, we are going to do a special Wednesday night edition of the In Focus Candidate Forum. That's Wednesday, October 3rd, and we'll be speaking with candidates running for the Northeastern Wayne School Board. And then, of course, you see the rest of them on the 4th. We come back with the 6th Congressional District. Indiana State Representative District 56, County Council District 3, and we'll wrap things up at just before the vote centers open with the Indiana Senate District 27 seat. So plenty of weeks to find out about the candidates running in all of the contested races, including, as I mentioned, those for school board. We have 3 of 6 candidates tonight that are running for the Nettle Creek School Board. Our partners in this, as I mentioned, are the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce, representing the chamber this evening, Chad Bolser with Ivy Tech Community College. Thank you for being here. You've done this with us before. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here and glad to be a part of the process. This is an exciting time of year.
Yes, it is. And we have candidates with us, Teresa Berry, Joseph Sorrell, and Sean Murphy. We will give each of them a minute to 90 seconds to introduce themselves to you, and then Chad will begin with the questions. So we start with Teresa.
It's Teresa Berry. I'm mother of 5, 2 stepchildren. I've worked in Nettle Creek School Corporation in the special education department. I've worked in marketing, receiving, and purchasing. I want what is best for our school, which is put our children and our staff first. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe.
Joe Sorrell. I first and foremost would like to thank and give praise to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for the strength and ability to be here this evening. And I would like to let you know that I've been engaged in the school board process and with the superintendent since January, encouraging them to make our school less secularized and to remember Jesus' influence on our community and our country and its founding and on Western civilization, and have been promoting that they teach the historic Jesus in schools, which I believe we've gotten far from and is a reason for a lot of the ills in our society. So I would appreciate your vote in November, and I will bring, to the best of my ability, his influence and love to the school board, and I'm interested in what's in the best interest of Hagerstown students. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sean Murphy.
Hi, my name is Sean Murphy, and I have lived in the Nettle Creek area for roughly 9 years now. I'm married to someone who grew up in the community. We have 2 young boys, one of which will soon be a student in Nettle Creek schools. So my focus is to bring a positive relationship back between the community and the school board, faculty, staff, and obviously of utmost importance, the students. My career, I'm a director of sales for a tech startup in Indianapolis called Freight Rover. My volunteer experience that exists within the Nettle Creek School Corporation, I was an AAU volunteer coach for 6th grade boys basketball. I helped out with varsity basketball for a number of years. I've helped out with Little League as a volunteer coach in that regard and an umpire. But I'm really looking forward to having a good dialogue with the candidates here this evening. Looking forward to any of us who are able or fortunate enough to earn your votes for this race to be able to make a positive impact on our schools and on our children. So thank you.
Thank you all, first of all, for putting your names on the ballot. A lot of people talk, a lot of people complain, but not everyone is willing to actually put themselves out in front of the voters. So thank you for doing that. This is an interactive conversation. If you have a question for the candidates, we are taking those. You can send those questions via email, send them via Twitter at WCTV Info, or we are taking phone calls. So we're going to turn to Chad and get the questioning started.
All right, excellent. We'll start, and every candidate will have a chance to respond to each of the questions. So we'll go, and if there's an opportunity for some dialogue in between, we're not held to one certain time or answer. So the first question, I'll start with Sean.
Sure.
What do you think is the biggest issue facing Nettle Creek School Corporation in the next 4 years?
Sure. I think that recently, in the past couple of years, there's been a very large disconnect in the manner and frequency of communication that exists between the members of the school board, faculty, staff, and the community. So I really think that we need to really place emphasis on that aspect. From my perspective, and I'm not necessarily sure that this is 100% true, but hopefully if I'm elected, I'll be able to delve more into this. There has been decisions that have been made behind closed doors without public knowledge, and there have been some things that have been done that upset a lot of community members that directly impacted their families, whether their families directly work for the schools or it is their children that are attending Nettle Creek schools. Something in that regard. Decisions have been made that public hasn't had the ability to give their input when it directly affects those individuals. So I think that that's important to make sure that those things are communicated properly. And then for whatever reasons, I didn't grow up in Nettle Creek schools, but I come from a small school. I grew up in Henry County, graduated from Tri-High in 2001. So I understand the pride that is associated with a small school. And for as long as I can remember, Nettle Creek Schools has always been a very positive place. Hagerstown has always had a very strong reputation of fantastic teachers, great academics, and just a very positive place in which to raise a family. That's why my wife and I chose to raise our family there. And it appears that that's gotten away from us a little bit, and I'm not necessarily sure why. So there's a lot of negativity, and it's become almost a toxic environment of sorts. So my goal in being elected to the school board would be to improve the levels of communication that exist between all parties affiliated with the schools and bring a positive environment back, because I've got small kids that are going to go there. And I want to make it a better experience for not only my children, but all the children in the community and the students in the community at large.
Joe.
Okay, I think I agree with the communication problem as one of the big issues. As well, there's a lot of division in the community over the superintendent, and I will just go ahead, and I don't know if that's rightly or wrongly founded, but I am going to call for we not renew his contract if I'm elected, and that will still give him 2.5 years remaining on his contract if we advise him of that in January. And I will support him throughout the remainder of his contract, but I believe it's time for a change because of the perception in the community, rightly or wrongly, that he's not a community member. I'm a lifelong resident of Hagerstown. I went through the school all my primary and secondary years, and there has been a change in the school system, although we're still rated a B school by the state. I wonder how accurate that is because we're compared to other schools, and I don't want to be compared to other schools. I want to stand out from the other schools, and I would hope for an A rating from the state for our school. And there are a lot of B schools in our surrounding area, and our enrollment did go up 26 students this year, so we were able to hire 2 new elementary school teachers, which I'm all for. I'm interested, another big area is increased pay for our teachers. We've lost a lot of teachers to other schools that offer higher pay, so that needs to be addressed. And again, I am an opponent of secularism, and I intend to bring back the traditional Christian values to our school as much as one board member can influence that. And I guess that's it.
Teresa, what do you think are the issues facing Nettle Creek schools?
Some of the issues are the lack of communication, the lack of working together, the fact some people are putting personal issues before the school. And I think our foundation is cracked, and we need to get back to honesty, communication. The children and the staff need to be first. Personal preferences and personal agendas do not belong in our school systems.
Well, interesting. One of these questions that was for later on in this session was about the very subject of communication and transparency for a school board. So you all mentioned it, and so we'll start, and I'll let Joe start off first on this question. How does a school board create transparency and communication to the broader community, and what would your plan be for that?
Well, as I stated, I've been engaged with the school board since January, and on the topics that I previously mentioned, and how I would like to get back to the foundations of what I believe our community and school was based on to begin with, and that is a Christian value. And I think we've gotten, actually, the 1963 Supreme Court case, Abington versus Shemp, where the Bible was taken out of schools for indoctrination purposes only, also encouraged the use of the Bible for historical and literary purposes. And there was an overreaction to that, and people are under the misconception that the Bible's not even allowed in schools anymore. And that's just a pervasive misconception that I believe I have helped to educate the board on, that it is not against the law to use the Bible to teach state standards in literature and in history. And that's my main platform, and to bring unity back to the school. I've seen growth on the board. When I first started contacting them, I rarely got a response from them, and to be honest with you, I chastised them about that, and they've been much more receptive to my engagement since then. So I applaud them for their growth, and if I'm elected, I intend to respond to all inquiries from residents and be very open and honest about what my beliefs and agenda is. And my agenda is what's in the best interest and for the love of Nettle Creek's students.
Teresa, how would you create transparency and a communication plan for the community?
I think I would, if elected as a board member, be more into the schools. As volunteer, go in once a week, check on them, see how they're doing, go in, have lunch, even with the students. They are an important part of our school system. They may be griping about having too much food that they don't like, but that's still them. They need to be feeling important too, so they can have ownership of their own education. I also believe that the communication that we discuss at board meetings can be put out to the community, because not all of them can make it to the board meetings with work and other activities. So we have Facebook, we have other social media. We can post it on there what was actually discussed at our meetings. And I would like to personally invite 2 teachers, 2 students, 2 parents, and have them sit in and have an open dialogue with them. So if there's an issue oppressing the system or the school in any way, shape, or form, we can communicate it together.
Sean, what would your plan be on communication and transparency?
Sure. So not to completely echo what Joe and Teresa have already said, but I think it's very important to have a quote-unquote open door policy, right? I think that having the ability to interact, making it a goal to interact with faculty, staff, admin, students, members of the community on a regular basis. Obviously I'll have my contact information available for anyone who would like to reach out. But from a managerial aspect, and if you want to take a realm or a leap into a business analogy, I guess, from my job as a manager where I work, policies and changes and things like that, and how we approach different situations with customers, I want to gather everyone's feedback. If there's a certain issue at hand, gather all the feedback from all the pertinent members, and who does it affect? How is this going to make our schools better? Gather everyone's feedback, anybody who would like to give it, and then make an informed decision. Now granted, it may not be, you're not going to please everyone, and I'm fully aware of that, and I'm fully prepared for the backlash that may come from that. But at the same time, my thought process has to override what my personal beliefs may be, and I've got to do what's right for our students and for the community. So I think that's something important to elaborate on a little bit, is that whether or not I believe a certain way, I can't let that affect how I vote on certain matters and how I let that impact our schools.
You're watching the In Focus Candidate Forum on Whitewater Community Television's WCTV Channel 11. We're speaking with 3 of the candidates running for the Nettle Creek School Board: Teresa Berry, Joe Sorrell, Sean Murphy, sitting in with Chad Bolser, who is representing our partner, the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce, and doing such a great job with the questioning. I'm going to let him continue.
Well, you've all 3 of you have brought up issues and topics that boards have to contemplate and vote on. An issue comes to the level of the school board, and it's a voting body. Sometimes votes don't go your way. Mm-hmm. How, as a board member, do you handle, and how do you really work with a situation where the board votes against what you are a proponent for? Teresa, I'll let you answer first this time.
As long as I stay true to what I feel is right, and I'm open and honest, and I look at it as a whole and do what I feel is right, I can only vote on my heart. What everybody else decides, it's majority wins. I can accept that. We have to. That's the way it is. Just because we disagree doesn't mean we can't get along.
Sean.
Yeah. I've always had a philosophy that it's not me, it's we. right? So I think that's something that I look at the individuals who would be my peers on the school board, and those individuals were elected by members of my community who they thought were going to best represent them and their values and act upon what they think are important issues. And it kind of goes back to what I said. You know, if something doesn't go the way that I intend to vote or the way that I have voted, I've got to believe that the individuals who are sitting next to me on that board are taking in the information that their constituents are giving them, and they're acting upon what they feel like is the best for those constituents. So obviously in a majority rule situation, if they feel like the majority of folks would want something to lean one way as opposed to where my vote lies, I've got to have the faith and belief in those individuals that they're doing the right thing. You can't approach these situations with a bitter taste in your mouth, in my opinion. I think you've got to make it something where everyone's working together and it's a team environment, right? So.
I probably should have done this at the beginning, but I'm an honorably discharged U.S. Air Force veteran, and I also have a degree from Ball State in history and secondary education, and I've worked on teams of diverse people from all walks of life, and going back to my belief system, I am instructed to treat people kindly and respectfully, and as Teresa said, you can disagree with someone without being disagreeable and without being bitter and disrespectful to them. Although sometimes if you disagree with a person, they take that as a personal attack, and that's something we need to get back to in our community and our country, is to be able to disagree with people without getting nasty about it. And I think that's one of the keys, and that's what I'm promoting, and I won't belabor the point from what perspective and worldview I come from, but that is a key to the ills of our society, and thankfully things creep into Hagerstown very slowly, unlike the rest of the country, and I'm thankful for that, and it's one of the reasons I choose to send my daughter to Nettle Creek schools. I have an 8-year-old daughter, a 3rd grader, and for the most part around the community, to younger people, I'm known as Sarah's father. So I guess that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, just to cabbage on one of those things, one of the goals of the school board is developing the whole child. And I think that if that is truly one of our goals as a school board, we need to hold ourselves in a manner and act with the ways in which we want those children to enter the world, enter the workforce once they leave our buildings and halls. So I think that it's important that if that truly is a goal and that's something that we ascribe to, and we want our children to go forth into the world being a fully developed individual, we have to go at it with that mindset that things are not always going to go your way. However, it's up to you to continue on, make your life great, and just continue to push forward.
Okay, the next question, and this is kind of, we're kind of moving off of what Joe said. Things from all around the state and all issues in K-12 education, public education, statewide issues affect the local school corporation.
Sure.
If you were to name it, and we're doing this in order, so we went through 3, and we'll go back to Sean. We'll keep going in that order if it's okay with you. What do you see as the top 2 or 3 big issues, most important issues facing the state of Indiana today in public education?
In public education,
Yes.
Okay, because that could have gone.
I know. I'm glad you looked at it that way, because that's right.
I understand that there is an emphasis at the state level placed upon the standardized testing that students have to take. However, I think that a lot of school corporations and possibly even the state, I'm not necessarily sure, we may be placing too much value upon those standardized tests. There are some students in schools across the states that do just not take standardized tests well. For example, I think you're all probably aware, and I think it's okay if I say this name, Ball State recently implemented a plan to not necessarily rely or require SAT scores for students coming in. They're relying more on GPAs as a predictive tool to understand how that individual is going to perform within their buildings on that campus. So going back to the adage of developing that whole child, I think that's an important piece. I think we place too much emphasis, and I may be wrong on this, but I think we place so much emphasis on that and how we perform on the test. And I understand that there's a financial aspect to it as well, but as long as we're preparing those individuals well for life after they leave our schools, that's what really matters. And I think another thing, there's always been such a push, right, to make a high school age student. It's always been the adage, or at least it was when I was, and now this feels like ages ago, you have to go to college. You have to go to college in order to be successful. And that's just not the case anymore. Obviously, this is probably something, Chad, that you see and you push every single day with the programs at Ivy Tech. How important manufacturing is. You have an entire program dedicated to it, right? The manufacturing matters. I think we need to find what children are, I say children, but students, we need to find what they're passionate about and guide them to a path. Sorry, this fell, so I'll just hold it. Guide them to a path that sets them up for success with whatever they're passionate about. I think we've lost that focus in recent years, and we need to get back to the point where, what do you want to do? What path do you want to take? What interests you? What are you passionate about? I don't think we dig deep enough into what children are passionate about. Now, with high school age kids, that may be somewhat of a loaded question, and I understand that that's going to change from the time that a student exits 8th grade until the time that they are a graduating senior. But that's where our counselors come into play, right? So that's where those folks are going to have an incredible impact. So preparing the students for life and realizing that not everyone is going to be a college student. Those who are, that's fantastic. Nettle Creek schools have amazing programs where students can exit as a senior and they can start off college with credits that take them up sometimes to a sophomore level. It's an incredible program. But not everyone's going to fall into that path. And we just have to realize that and push those, or not push those students, guide those students into whatever they want to do.
Joe.
Sean makes an excellent point. Not all students, they're from my training as a teacher. I was a teacher for 6 years in middle school, so that does kind of give me a saint status, I think, to teach middle school for 6 years. But not all students are going to be strong in academics, but they may have a gift for using their hands, and we should encourage them and guide them, as Sean said, into a career that might be more in line with their gifts and abilities. And everyone has some gift or ability that they can emphasize and enhance and be successful in life. It doesn't have to be a college degree with unimaginable debt that kids come out of college with. I actually have a small campus ministry at Ball State, and I wouldn't mind getting into IU East and Ivy Tech with that as well. But the millennials get a bad rap in my mind. I found them to be respectful, hardworking. They're not that much different than my generation at their age, and I think we need to get away from that putting down the millennials and be more encouraging towards them. And also, not only the vocational training that Sean, and that's an excellent point, brings up, the state funding formula may need to be looked at for small rural schools, and And life is competitive. I'm not a participation trophy kind of guy. You know, there's winners and losers in life, and that's just a fact of life. And we need to quit dumbing that down and making everyone think that just because they don't have an academic gift that they're doomed for failure, because all occupations are noble in my view, and no one needs to be looked down on whatever occupation they choose. And but I don't know enough about the state funding formula to talk real intelligently on that, but I would like to research it a little bit and see what could be done to help out rural schools.
Teresa, what do you think the top 2 or 3 issues facing this K-12 system?
I think the budget, the funding, and standardized testing, and I also think the interfering with the state in the day-to-day classrooms. There's so much that the teachers have to do that is mandated by the state that they can't even enjoy teaching anymore. And I think that's a big problem.
You're watching the In Focus Candidate Forum on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11, being made possible by the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce and WCTV. We're joined by candidates running for the Nettle Creek School Board: Teresa Berry, Sean Murphy, Joe Sorrell. Chad Bolser from Ivy Tech Community College is here with us. I'm going to jump in. We're about halfway through. One of the things that school boards are grappling with, schools have been grappling with for a while, is security. But that continues to ramp up, obviously.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about where you think Nettle Creek schools need to be, and you mentioned the small school and how things are a little bit different. We had the superintendents here a while ago. They talked about how the schools, particularly some of the small schools, are the center or the heart of their communities. How do you keep those open for the community but safe for the students? How do you approach that as a school board member?
I think we need to involve our police officers that are in the community, our reserve officers, use them as officers in the school. They have a bond with them, some of them already. I also believe that the safety plans need to be out to all parents so we can work together on teaching our kids at home, if something happens, this is where you go. I strongly think that the resource officers in the school should be from the community. Therefore, there's a bond between like in Hagerstown, there's a bond between just about everybody walking the street. And if somebody's in need, they're going to step up and help. And the kids see that. They also see the officers, they see the off-duty officers. Using our officers that are off-duty to fill in for resource officers in the building, I think is just going to build stronger community relations. And it's also going to teach the kids not to fear the uniform, which I believe is important too.
I think there are several things that can be done. You know, myself, I mentioned that I have 2 young boys. Whether it comes from a public funding standpoint in the manner of a tax increase by our government officials, personally, I do not have a problem paying a little bit more to keep our schools, my children, everyone else's children in the community safe. I think it's a fantastic thing what Governor Holcomb recently did with allowing any school that wanted it to have security wands provided for free to that school corporation. It's sad in our current state of affairs within not only the state of Indiana, Wayne County, but the United States as a whole that we have had to reach that point. But I think that's a fantastic program, and I think that I know that Nettle Creek took part in that. On a much larger scale, though, and something that I think could potentially be at the crux or the core of this issue is mental health. of not only the individuals who are committing these acts, who are sometimes students at the school, sometimes faculty at the school, and I think that, you know, if we did a better job, and granted, I'm not on the school board, I don't know if this is already occurring, and if it is, fantastic, kudos to Nettle Creek Schools, but just things to watch for from a mental health perspective. If a certain student is behaving in a manner that could raise a red flag, those things need to be communicated to everyone involved at that level. And just an education overall about mental health, about what is potentially causing these individuals to act this way. Because you see it after nearly every tragedy that occurs within our country, that the individual was mentally troubled, whether it be through social media posts that they have made, notes that they have written at home, ways that they behaved amongst their peers and in the schools in which these tragedies have occurred. So an education from a standpoint of mental health and making our counselors aware of those situations, I think that is absolutely vital to helping us curb this problem and hopefully, you know, ending up to stop it.
Actually, earlier in the year, I called for the school board to hire resource officers at our schools, especially, if not all day, especially at opening and dismissals, because I feel like that's when the school is most vulnerable. Other than that, there's limited entry into the building. You have to go through the office entry, and they can control entry, and I feel pretty safe sending my daughter to Nettle Creek Schools. A lot of that's the community we live in, but as Sean mentioned, a severely mentally ill person or a criminal is not going to abide by the laws of society, and we need to have police officers on hand to counteract that in the terrible event that someone comes to school and wants to harm someone. So I have been active in that and called, and I know that the board is working on funding from grants to hire those positions. I haven't got an update on that recently, but I was assured they'd keep me updated on that as the funding goes. So safety is another important issue to me.
Another issue that the state is facing and all of the local school corporations are facing is the shortage of teachers. We don't have enough teachers for the positions that we have available. How does a school board member and a school board as a whole make Nettle Creek the type of place that attracts teachers to their corporation? Joe, we'll let you go first.
Of course, a lot of that problem is demographics. The baby boomer generation is retiring, and there's just a shortage of people that have gone into the teaching field, because there was always a glut of teachers until recently because of the baby boomers, and now that they're retiring, it's also a lot of economics involved in attracting teachers. You have to have competitive pay. You have to have a environment that's viewed as friendly to teachers, and that gets back to, there seems to be a perception in our community that the superintendent is not necessarily viewed as teacher friendly. And as I said, I don't know if that's a right or wrong perception, but it exists, and there are signs all over Hagerstown that indicate the displeasure with that perception. And so I think we need to foster the school board needs to set an example and foster a environment that teachers feel welcome to come and will be supported at Nettle Creek Schools, and we have to find a way to increase their pay, because people act upon economic issues, and that's just That's just a fact. I don't think anyone can deny that. So we have to find a way to increase their pay, and it's going to be a tough issue to tackle given the state funding that we have. So we have to continue to be very competitive with the other schools and increase our enrollment, which we did this year, which is probably exceptional in the area for rural schools. 26 students, that's roughly $130,000 more dollars for the school system to hire teachers. Unfortunately, it didn't go to pay increases. It went to hiring 2 staff members at the elementary because we had large class sizes in some of the grades, and we needed to get those down. So that was a wise move by the board. And so I guess I have more questions than answers, but I do want to explore with the rest of the board. Another, just real briefly, I happen to know 6 or 7 that Christian homeschool students actually sent their students to Hagerstown schools this year. So I'm thankful for that, and I think we're making progress to make people of faith make their students feel welcome at our school and not feel like they're going to be ridiculed or ostracized for their faith. And I think that's a positive and something we need to continue to foster in our school system, is welcoming those of all faiths to our school, that they will feel welcome. And
Teresa, how does the school board attract teachers to Nettle Creek?
I think first of all, we need to keep the ones we have.
Good point.
I think that we need to work on keeping our staff, that we need to increase their pay, we need to build our foundation, and the word of mouth is the best way to market our school. So when we're sitting at a volleyball game or a football game and we're at Lincoln or we're at Tri, every parent needs to name one great thing about Hagerstown. And I honestly think the word of mouth is the best way to market our school. And it has to be positive on what we say. And with that, we'll grow the stronger foundation, which will be saying, hey, I want part of that. And with that, Hagerstown's going to grow.
Well, I mean, it's no secret that in recent years, Hagerstown and Nettle Creek schools have lost several tenured teaching individuals. We're losing talent not only from a student perspective, but we're also losing talent from the aspect of our educators. Another one of the goals of the school board is to increase academic achievement. What's the goal of a teacher, and what are they passionate about? What do they thrive on? What do they get job satisfaction out of? Is teaching and increasing the level of academic achievement of a student. I'll approach this a little bit differently from a business aspect, and I completely agree with Joe and Teresa's points about increasing the level of pay that we're paying these teachers. But I'm looking at it from a standpoint of return on investment. If our goal is to increase the academic achievement of students, how am I going to get that? I'm a big proponent of you pay for talent. You pay for whatever teachers are going to give you your return on investment, and the investment in this case is the students. So I really think that's important. You know, we've got to bring the positivity back as well. As I've previously mentioned, there's such a negative connotation with our school system right now, whether it be disagreements that are with the current administration, or their level of pay, or the feeling that they're underappreciated. I think that those are all strong issues. So as a school board member, it would be one of my goals to make our current teachers feel as though they are valued, not just from a financial aspect, but I think we need to reach out to these individuals and make them know that they're loved and they're welcome at Nettle Creek schools, and that they are truly making an impact in these young persons' lives. And again, you've got to raise the level of pay where it's commensurate with budget, and that's another issue that we can kind of harp on. And I saw you making some marks. You're probably going to get into a budget question next. Obviously, I don't know the inner workings of the budget, but it's got to make sense, right? Everything has to balance out. There has to be checks and balances in place, and we've got to make sure that if we are giving pay increases, we're not operating in the red. So we've got to make sure that everything plays out like that. But those would be some of my goals as it relates to that.
Could I interject real quickly? It may appear that I'm awfully hard on the superintendent today, but I do want to say something positive about him. When he took over 6 years ago, Hagerstown, the Nettle Creek School Corporation, was on the verge of bankruptcy, and he had to make some tough decisions, and I think that will always color his tenure at our school with the public. But he and the board at that time made some tough decisions on right sizing, which was necessary. Hopefully we can keep growing our enrollment, and our funding will continue to increase, and we can increase teacher pay. And I just want to say I'm delighted by, I think they're younger than me for sure, that these two other candidates, I feel whether I or they win, that they have the best interest of students at heart, as well as I do. And I know one of the other candidates, Marcy, has a track record of that. I don't know the other two candidates, so I can't comment, but I'm encouraged by the participation and their answers tonight.
I'm not going to ask a budget question, but I am going to ask a question that's related to budget items and overall philosophy of the district. Extracurricular, co-curricular activities are a huge part of a school corporation. What's your view for Nettle Creek School Corporation? Do you are those programs do you have a good space where they are now? Are they at the right size? Are they expanded? Or is this a time to decrease those? What's your view on extracurricular and co-curricular activities for the school corporation? Teresa.
I think they're large in our school. And I think that where they are is good. It has an opportunity for what every student would like to go out for. And there's a large number of participation in each sport. I do believe that the guidelines that the athletes have to have in order to play keeps Hagerstown in the realm of good grades, further in education. And it plays an important part of the students owning and being respectful and their self-esteem, which in turn helps with their education. I really believe that the sports and the curriculum and the after-school activities and the clubs all benefit everybody in their self-esteem, their self-motivation, and their self-worth, which then turns out a better student who becomes a better adult. I think they're very important.
Sean.
You know, I think that extracurricular and co-curricular activities right now at Hagerstown are right-sized. And I've made this point, a couple different times this evening. The goal of the school is to guide the student, right, and to get them into a path where they're something they're passionate about. You begin to take programs away, something like a drama club, or you take away a different activity that a student can participate in, and that could potentially lead to a decrease in enrollment, which is obviously not the goal. There has been a push in years past to add other sports, add different programs. My belief on this right now is that we just don't have the enrollment that can support that, because if you were to add, you add another sport, boys and girls, name the sport, you could possibly pull individuals away from another sport and decrease that and possibly decrease the competitive level of that. I'm a firm believer that if you're going to have, whether it's sports or band or anything like that, it's good to be competitive, because I think that teaches children, I keep saying children, teaches students a valuable lesson about life, that life is competitive. So, another goal of the school board is to build school and community lasting partnerships. I think there's no better way than to build those relationships with the individuals in the community by making those extracurricular and co-curricular activities known. I have a nephew who's in marching band, and it's incredible to go out to the state fair and watch him perform and see all the support from the local community out there. The drama club, supporting them with their activities. Sports, obviously, that's going to be your major draw, but that does a very, very good job of building those relationships and helps the community interact with those students.
I think our sports program is top notch. Mr. Cady and Brian Dale and I'm struggling with the football coach's name. Mr. Snodgrass have really put Hagerstown on the state map in athletics, and Mr. Gray as well with track and cross country. And as a at-risk student that attended Hagerstown, I can tell you that if it hadn't been for my love of basketball, I would have probably dropped out of high school before. So it is a retention aspect to it as well, to keep at-risk students in school. And so I am a great supporter of extracurricular activities. I want to give a shout out to Boys and Girls Club that works at the elementary school at Hagerstown, and my daughter participates in that, and those are some outstanding people that really love our students. And so I do want to mention, I think our band and music department has suffered a little bit recently because of downsizing, and I want to see if we can work to help build that program, although the band is very well respected in the state as well.
And Chad wants to probably get one more question in, and we're going to keep you each at about a minute on this one because we're down to our last 5 minutes.
Thank you, because I was going to say this. This might be the most complicated question of all. So it's great that we're keeping it to a minute. What workforce? I would be remiss for being from Ivy Tech not to mention this. Workforce is a huge issue for this county and for the state. What does a school corporation, and what role does Nettle Creek School Corporation play in solving some of the workforce issues that we are tackling in this county?
When I wave my hand, that means you have to stop.
All right. Well,
who's going first here?
Yeah, who wants to go first?
I'll tackle it.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I'll tackle it.
Brief.
So you see a lot of times when there are economic initiatives to bring new companies to a general area, and our EDC in Wayne County has done a phenomenal job. You look at Blue Buffalo, you look at the other investments from companies that have been made in this area. And one of the things when talent is looking to come work for one of those investments, they look at schools. So it is our job as a school board to make sure that we are tooting our own horns, we're singing the praises of Nettle Creek schools, and we're making sure that when the EDC gets investments and gets commitments from large companies to come to this area, that we make sure that they know that Wayne County and Nettle Creek schools are a fantastic place to raise your family, to send your children, and to have a very high quality of life.
Nettle Creek Schools is the largest employer in our area of Hagerstown, and I think if we continue to grow, that helps the economy by hiring more staff. So that's a plus. We also need to train our students in the vocational needs that the area is looking for to fill slots in. So we need to work with the EDC and those that know what kind of jobs are available and train our students to fill those positions.
I agree with Sean. I think we need to market it positive as much as possible. When they bring in new corporations, new employees, also be like, this is our school system. This is what we offer. This is our sports system. We just pump everything up on the highest positive level we can have. Wayne County and Nettle Creek together are wonderful areas to live in Indiana. We have everything right at our fingertips. If it's not right here, all you have to do is drive 30 to 40 minutes and you have anything you want.
Well done.
We got through it.
Yes,
absolutely.
Believe it or not. I want to thank the candidates for coming in tonight. These are 3 of 6 candidates that are actually on the ballot. Teresa Berry, Sean Murphy, Joe Sorrell. Thank you all very much for, again, putting your name on the ballot and for taking the time to be able to come and let the community hear your thoughts on some of the issues. Chad Bolser, thank you very much for spending this evening with us. We greatly appreciate it. You had some good questions.
Thank you. I've fed them, fed the questions to me. You know that. I didn't make those up on my own.
Want to remind you that next week, our In Focus Candidate Forum will spotlight Western Wayne School Board. The following week, we will have the Richmond School Board, Wayne Township Trustee, and Centerville Abington School Board on the 27th. And then on October 3rd, we are having a special In Focus Candidate Forum. We are actually very happy that a number of people decided to put their names into the races for these school boards, and that was part of the conversation that was being held actually out in the lobby between some of the candidates. They were excited by the number of people that were running. And then 6th Congressional District coming up on October 4th. I would be remiss if I did not mention that Ivy Tech Community College, along with Indiana University East and the NAACP, are having the Unity Banquet. That is an event that Ivy Tech had been involved in for a number of years. It took a hiatus. It is back. It is for scholarships, 6 to 9 p.m., Friday, September 4th at Lingle Hall, with Dr. Charlie Nelms, former chancellor here at Indiana University East, being a part of that and the special speaker. And then our partners, the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce, are having their Community Improvement Awards at the Leland Legacy. That is coming up on September 13th from 11:30 until 1. If you missed any of this program and want to see it, it will be re-airing again tonight at 10:30, tomorrow night at 9 p.m., tomorrow night at 8 p.m., Saturday at 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. and Sunday at 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. It will also be available on WGTV Online, our video on demand site, and we are streaming this live to our Facebook page, so it will be there for you to be able to view also. You can also hear audio of this program being replayed Sunday morning at 6 a.m. on 100.9 and on G1013. Thank you very much for watching this edition of the In Focus Candidate Forum. Have a good night and a great weekend.